Let's talk about Yellowjackets season 3 episode 1 and 2. We're going to go through 1 very quickly. This is more going to focus on 2. I didn't know if I wanted to do 2 separate episode breakdowns, but since both of them came out, let's just skip to number 2 pretty much. But let's go quickly over what happened in episode 1. So like I said before, we're going to be covering the episodes weekly. So if you want to discuss them and talk about them or hear some thoughts that I have behind them and some theories, this is your go-to spot. Make sure you subscribe. Let's get into episode 1. So what we find out at the beginning of this episode is that infamous Shauna biting Mari picture we've seen for the past couple of days now. It turns out they were just playing a game, but there is some animosity between Shauna and Mari. It's been going on for some time, as they said throughout the group, and they kind of want Natalie to step in and figure things out for them. But Natalie's like, you know what? I'm not here to police people around or tell them what to do. We have more important things to take care of, like surviving and not dying. But even Ty tells Natalie, well, you know what? Things can quickly escalate. So I think this should be something that we need to figure out. We find out that they have built some new living quarters, and that's due to Nat and Jen and Ty helping out. And it took them a bit. Of course, we know that the cabin burned at the end of season 2. They all pinpointed to Coach, and Natalie has been one of the people that's been like, you know what? Let's let Coach go. He's probably dead. He froze to death, whatever. And everybody's kind of weird about this because they want to get revenge on Coach for burning down the cabin, which we don't know if Coach did or didn't, right? So we end up seeing that Van is giving a pep talk to the group. It's like a solstice game. They have a festival of sorts. The losing team of the game they were playing earlier has to serve the other one. That's the rules. But Shauna is giving a different version of it, a much more, I would say, pessimistic thought about it, where Van is saying that they have miracles and sacrifices that have helped them progress throughout the wilderness. And Shauna just says, you know what? They're just crazy. This is nothing to do with miracles or any spirits. They're just nuts. Back in the adult world, we see that Natalie's memorial is happening. At the end of season 2, of course, Misty accidentally shot her with some fentanyl straight to her chest, which caused her to die. And then Walter comes and tells Misty that Natalie actually had a storage unit, which she goes in to check out. Lottie has been taken into a facility after the events of season 2 and is being treated for whatever it is she may have, right? Shauna isn't really participating with the group in the teenage years, and we see that Natalie keeps insisting that Coach has died to everybody as he is being brought up, and we eventually see Coach is still alive very well, and he actually finds some care packages filled with protein bars, hot chocolate, medical stuff, and all of this, and he's trying to pretty much hunt on his own and survive, stay far away from the girls as possible. As we know, he sort of got scared of how they were eating Jackie, and also the whole thing with Javi at the end of season 2. Also with Javi, we see that Travis and Lottie in the teenage years are sort of experimenting with drugs and trying to get Travis to see beyond and see the spirits and all of that, which is taking a toll on Travis, who of course is still grieving his brother and the decisions they made in order to eat him. And Lottie sort of seems to really feel that Travis has a connection with the wilderness and keeps pushing him try these psychedelic drugs and continue to find whatever it is, which it is going to be important. Back in the adult years, we see that Cal is sort of being teased by other girls at her school now that Natalie's death sort of has brought back the conversation of what exactly the girls did, the Yellowjackets, during the time in the wilderness. So she throws some guts at some of the girls that were talking shit about her mom, and now she's suspended. Eventually, we also see that Lottie has come out of the facility she was in and decides to come stay with Shauna, which Shauna is not happy about at first, but after Callie insists for her to stay with them, they decide, okay, just temporarily, she can stay with us. We also see adult Misty spiraling due to the death of Natalie. She starts drinking and she's not really in control of herself. Misty we met a couple of seasons ago, who was in control and always a couple of steps ahead and was very much overprotective, and overanalyzing isn't really here. This is a Misty who does a lot of mistakes throughout, and of course this is because of Natalie's death and the guilt that she feels. At the end of the first episode, however, we see that Mari has now fallen into the Coach's trap, and this is because her and Shauna had a fight and they were separated and told to go to each other's tents and not come out for a week. Mari didn't like this because she feels it's Shauna Shauna who's being the one that's pushing her, and she's not really doing anything, so she runs out. And as she runs out, of course, she ends up in Coach's trap, and now she has seemingly dislocated her knee, and she feels that Coach is going to kill her. Episode 2 starts off with Coach telling Mari that he did not burn the cabin when she confronts him about it, and actually helps her get out of this ditch and bring herself back up to a bit of health. But of course, he says that he cannot trust her. Coach doesn't really trust letting Mari go, and Mari not going to the group and saying, hey, I know Coach is alive and I know where he is. In the meantime, we also have Natalie, who's now gone with Misty to try and find where Mari has gone, and Natalie now seems to give us a clue that she knows where Coach is and that Coach is still alive, because she sees one of his traps and she gets kind of weird about it, but Misty notices that as well, and eventually goes to tell Shauna about this. And she doesn't say anything to Natalie, she doesn't say anything to anybody else, but it seems that Shauna might use this to her advantage later on. And we've seen already in the trailer that Shauna seems to confront Natalie about something. It might very well be about this, as Shauna feels some type of way about how they're going about and having a queen of sorts. She even mocks the whole thing with Natalie being quote unquote the queen at the beginning of episode 1. So Shauna's been feeling some type of way, the teenage Shauna, right? And we see that her and Melissa start to sort of have a bond of sorts that starts to begin to blossom. We also notice Shauna is very indifferent about them treating her child like a sacrifice or like something that needed to happen in order for them to survive. So she goes to dig up the grave where the child is and brings it to another grave. And we later see that she's not the only one that knows about this new secret grave. Now, in the adult world, we see that Misty, of course, has hit rock bottom. Walter's trying to help her. Walter tries to reason with her, saying that her quote-unquote friends aren't really there for her. But when Shauna calls up Misty for help, Misty runs over there quickly, but it's just because she wants Misty to babysit Lottie and Callie as her and Jeff go to a work meeting that Jeff has in order to get like this big deal that he wants for his furniture store. This meeting goes horrible for Jeff. I will say that the assholes that talk to him are just assholes, but it goes even into a weirder direction when it comes to Shauna, because she starts to get sort of stalked by somebody in the restroom, and eventually a phone is left there for her, which she doesn't answer when it rings. And she gives it to one of the bartenders, and then she just completely destroys the meeting by calling the two assholes, and Jeff and her go back home. We see back at home that Shauna calls the restaurant a couple of hours later to try and find out who exactly had this phone, and they sort of give a description of who it was. And I'm assuming that this is Melissa who is back in the picture, because as this is happening, a scene in the teenage years is happening where Shauna goes to see her baby's grave and there are flowers now, and Melissa is the one who put those flowers, and we eventually see Melissa and Shauna share a kiss together as the episode ends, as adult Shauna looks in shock to whatever they're saying on the phone to her. So in my opinion, it seems that Melissa is very well back and could be the character that Hilary Swank is playing this season, like I said in my theory videos. So Hilary Swank, I always believed was playing a survivor. My other guess was she was playing somebody close to Coach, but I could definitely see a world where Melissa did survive, like I said, and maybe nobody knew about it really like that, or maybe some of them did know about it, but they just assumed that she was gone or whatever, because in previous seasons, they've always said these are the only survivors. So it's just interesting to note how somebody else could have survived and they didn't know about it, because we saw there has been tapes of them being rescued, and that's all the survivors there is, right? Other things we see in this episode as well is Callie drugging Misty to get her to go to sleep so Lottie can tell her the truth about what happened out there in the wilderness, which gets Shauna pissed when she finds out that Misty fell asleep and that Callie and Lottie were sort of talking one-on-one to each other. So I'm curious to know what exactly Lottie has been telling Callie and how this whole thing with her staying at Shauna's will affect Callie, because it seems like Callie is really interested in all of the things and it, as she says as well. So I was editing this video and I completely forgot to talk about that Shauna actually received a tape in the mail, and this tape is unbeknownst to all of us what it contains. Only Callie was able to grab it, and so Callie might have listened to it, and that's why she's getting suspicious. I believe this tape could be something that Melissa maybe sent to Shauna, and maybe Callie's just trying to figure out who Melissa is, and maybe we'll hear her ask this to Lottie later down the road. I just forgot to add that part, y'all, but Yeah, the tape is very important. Can be kind of dangerous if Lottie gets into her head as well. I also think the whole thing with Van and Thaisa is sort of giving me some vibes that they are hiding something in the teenage years as well when they talk about the cabin burning, which is a theory I've had before and said in my theory video that I think maybe Thaisa could have been the one that burned the cabin unbeknownst to everybody, even herself, because in her sleepwalking stages, right? And Van could be helping to cover that up, and that is why they keep sort of talking about the coach and all. And also during the adult Thaisa and Van situation we see that Van and Thaisa end up like having a dine and ditch type scenario, and the waiter chases after them. He eventually has a heart attack and dies, which they don't find out about until later on. Thaisa tries to set everything straight and pay for the food, and the restaurant's trying to get a hold of Thaisa, and she takes some matches and she's just intently looking at them. So I think it's foreshadowing the whole fire thing, because then she throws them into a candle, just watches the fire go. So Thaisa could be like a pyromaniac of sorts here that wants to burn things, and maybe she is the one who burned the cabin and Van is covering up for her there. And it's just easier to put the blame on Coach, because Coach of course is the one who's kind of resenting them. They could eventually just eat him, even though they say they're done eating people, because now they are like farming and they're raising animals and all of this. So they very well could have stopped, but I'm pretty sure something's going to happen where they're going to come back to it, because as we know, we still have Pit Girl and we still don't know who Pit Girl is. So at the end of the first two episodes, Shauna of course is being stalked, and I think she is being stalked by Melissa, who has survived and is being played by Hilary Swank. Coach in the teenage years has taken Mari with him and is keeping her with him because he doesn't trust her to go back to the group. Coach also seems to be losing it as he's talking to himself and arguing with himself, and he's just trying to figure out what to do. Natalie's going to be suspicious, the teenage Natalie, because she knows about Coach, and Misty has caught on to that and might be using that as leverage to sort of get into the good graces of Shauna, or maybe to try and maybe blackmail Natalie as well to be more closer to her and her friend. We don't know what's going on there, but I think Shauna is eventually going to use this against Natalie and sort of try to usurp herself into the role of the queen, because that's something she had been wanting, it seems. And we also have the situation going on with Thaisa and Van in the teenage years, where I'm kind of suspicious about what they're doing, because it seems that maybe Van is covering for something Thaisa has done, and that's why they're putting all of the blame on Coach. Travis and Lottie as well are having this weird relationship where Lottie wants to push Travis to sort of be the person that talks to nature and the spirits, and now Travis is trying to get her off of him. And it seems that that has been something that followed Travis all the way into his adult years, as we found out in the previous seasons that him and Lottie had a thing, and also Natalie, and it just became a very convoluted thing. But of course now we have adult Natalie and adult Travis dead, so we don't really get their side of the stories anymore, right? And Lottie of course is staying with Shauna, which I think is going to bring a lot of problems when it comes to Shauna, especially with Callie. But yeah, I think that Melissa is the one who is stalking Shauna, and Melissa has survived somehow. I've said it before that we could definitely see a split of factions of sorts coming this season, where some of the girls might go their separate ways and they get rescued separately, and they don't find out about it till maybe years later. Maybe Melissa saw it in the news about Lottie's compound and was able to find what happened with Sean and all of that, and it sort of reignited something in her, because of course in the teenage years we see they kind of have a romance like brewing of sorts. So the next couple of episodes will be interesting. I don't know if they've released the trailer for what's coming next. When they do, I will be reacting and talking about it, so stay tuned for that. But for more things on all the things you love about Yellowjackets, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We got a ton of things to talk about pretty soon, and this season just got off to a really good start. I've said before that I think Coach will be put on trial as well, so I think that's something that we're going to be seeing happening. Mari might be rescued. I think Natalie as well will be outed as being somebody who knows what happened to Coach and is covering for him. As we've seen in the trailer, she gets confronted by Shauna. So we got a lot of things that are going to be coming up pretty soon. I'll have a theory video about what I think is coming this season based on these two episodes that will be coming out all on Monday, so stay tuned for that. We'll be covering Yellowjackets every Friday. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Never miss out on an episode. Let me know your thoughts and your theories. What do you think? And Thaisa, you think they're hiding the fact that maybe Thaisa burned the cabin? What do you think about Coach? Did he or did he not burn the cabin too? He could just be playing coy. We never know, right? And how do you think Mari's going to escape from Coach Ben as well? And do you think that Hilary Swank is indeed Melissa and that is who is stalking Shauna? Because I think that that is a thing right there. Is why would they play those two scenes like right next to each other, interlacing, right? So that's my thoughts, my theories. But more Yellowjackets content on Monday with my theories about season 3. And also we'll be covering each episode weekly, so don't miss out on that. We're covering Severance weekly, Yellowjackets, and we're going to be starting with The White Lotus on Sunday. Don't miss out on all of these episodes and all the things you love in pop culture. Keep it here at Culture Elixir. I'll see all of you next time. Stay safe, stay positive.